Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of my channel, My Journey to Loving Me. And I am Katina. Thank you so much for joining me today. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. As I always say, thank you so much for spending your time with me. I know that time is precious and it's something you can't get back. It's more precious than anything else because you get more money, you get more things, but you can't get your time back. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So as we begin each one of our episodes, just want to take some time just to breathe and to take some deep breaths as we transition into our time together. So just want to lead us into a few deep breaths and some time of quietness as we prepare for our topic and our conversation for today. So let's just get started. And if you're joining me, thank you so much. And we're getting ready to just start breathing and preparing for our conversation. So let's get started. So I count to three, and I want you just to take three deep breaths in and then exhale. So let's get started. One, two, three. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. And the last one, breathe in, breathe out. And we'll take some time just to be quiet and still and just to allow ourselves time to transition from whatever we were doing before into this topic of today. So just give us a few seconds of quietness and stillness. Okay, thank you again as we are transitioning into our topic for today. And this, again, thank you for your time. So, this topic is entitled Don't Wait for Permission. Don't wait for permission. And what that means to me, as I was thinking about today, is sometimes we wait for people to give us permission to do certain things, to be ourselves, to be have a voice, to make decisions. And so I'm just wanted to, have this conversation with you about not waiting for people to give us permission to be authentically ourselves, to have a voice, to be just to be. So, if, like for instance, sometimes we're waiting for people to give us permission to walk in our purpose, to give us permission to do the things that God has called us to do, to just be ourselves. We want people to give us permission to be ourselves. And whatever that may be for you, your quirky self, your nerdy self, your whatever the thing you put in self, we're waiting for people to give us permission just to be. And I'm encouraging us, as I'm encouraging myself, to stop waiting for people to give you permission to be who God has called you to be. Like, for instance, I started this YouTube channel, something I've been thinking about forever, thinking about the right time to do it. And as I thought about it, all of the reasons why I shouldn't do it. Well, I don't have a million followers. I don't know all these people. I don't think that my voice is like somebody else's, and so on and on and on. And I had to stop myself and stop and to correct myself. And actually, God had to correct me. I'm waiting for somebody to tell me it's okay for me to do it. I'm waiting for somebody to tell me, oh, you have what it takes and you are all of these things and, you can do it. Why do I have to wait for somebody to tell me to do something that I want to do and try? And guess what? If I try and I don't like it, or maybe it's not a success, then okay, I tried it. And then again, who says if it's a success or not? If it's something I've done to come out of my comfort zone and it helped me to grow and mature and develop in finding my voice, who God has called me to be, it's not about how many followers I have. It's not about if I went viral and all the things that we put a label on what a success is. A success is that I started it, I did it, came out of my comfort zone, and I tried it, and guess what? That was a success for me. So I encourage us as we're talking about this topic, why do we give people the power and the authority over our lives to give us permission to be? So I'm just going to say to be yourself, to start the job, to start the business, to apply to school, to maybe change the color of your hair, just maybe something simple as that. And we ask people, what do you think about this? And we get their opinion and we're just asking different people about those things. When it's something you want to do and it's, lines up with the word of God and he is okay with that, then why do we have to ask people for permission for those things? Why do we have to ask permission to just be who God has called us to be? Why do we have to ask permission for people to be ourselves? Why do we have to put up this facade and this front so that people will like us? Why can't we just be ourselves and be authentically who God has called us to be? And so right now, I want you to tell yourself, I give myself permission to be who God has called me to be. I give myself permission to be who God has called me to be. I give myself permission to be authentically who God has called me to be. I give myself permission to be who God has called me to be. I give myself permission to have the voice that God has called me to have. I give myself permission to be who God has called me to be. And why am I saying that over and over again? Because we need to tell ourselves, we need to remind ourselves, we need to speak that thing over ourselves. I give myself permission to be who God has called me to be. I give myself permission to thrive and to grow, to expand and to develop. I give myself permission to be who God has called me to be. I give myself permission to be who God has called me to be the person He's called me to be the person He's called me to be. I just feel like I need to keep saying that. I give myself permission to be who God has called me to be. And that means I don't have to be like anybody else. That means that I don't have to sound like anybody else. That means I give myself permission to be who God has called me to be. Let's just sit with that for a minute. What has God called you to be? What has God called you to become? And why haven't you started the podcast? Why haven't you started the YouTube channel? Why haven't you applied for the job? Why haven't you applied to school? Why haven't you started the lessons? Why haven't you started that health journey that He's called you on? Why haven't you even explored with a different hair color? Why haven't you had that crucial, uncomfortable conversation? Why haven't you did that thing that will cause you to come out of your comfort zone, but it is what God has called you to do, to be and be involved in who He's called you to be? And I encourage you to maybe ask yourself, why haven't you done it? And a lot of times we wait for people to give us the green light. We wait for people to tell us it's okay. We wait for people to tell us that we're good enough, we're smart enough, we're pretty enough, we're enough. We're giving people the authority and the power to give us permission to be. So I encourage us to take that power back and stop waiting for people to give you permission to be, to come, to evolve, and to grow, to expand, and to develop. Think about the butterfly and how it goes through its process. It's born, it grows into a caterpillar, and it goes from a caterpillar, it goes into a cocoon, and it has that time in the cocoon to become, and it comes out of the cocoon and becomes a butterfly. And not one time do I see a butterfly as it's going through its maturation process ask another animal or human being for permission to evolve and become a butterfly. It does it because innately that is what God has called it to do and how it's supposed to evolve. It doesn't ask for permission to become a butterfly. It doesn't ask for permission to go through that growth process. And it's not pretty. Have you ever seen a butterfly when it's in its caterpillar stage? It's not pretty. It's wormy. It looks hairy. It doesn't look pretty. But guess what? It goes through that process. It becomes a beautiful butterfly. And even in evolving into a butterfly, it goes into a cocoon. It goes into hiding, and it breaks out of that cocoon, and it evolves into a butterfly. So think about that when you think about your process. If a animal or an insect goes through its process and it doesn't ask for permission to evolve, why am I waiting for permission from people to evolve and to become who God has called me to be? So I want you, as you think about this and to listen to it maybe once or twice, or if you listen to it once and get something out of it, ask yourself, why am I waiting for people to give me permission to evolve and become who God has called me to be? So as I close, I just want to say it again, and you can say it with me in your head if you are out loud. I will not wait for people to give me permission to become, evolve, develop, and grow into who God has called me and destined me to be. I will not wait for people to give me permission to grow, to develop, to evolve, to become who God has called me to be. I take that permission, that authority, that power out of those people's hands, and I give it to myself to become who God has called, ordained, and destined for me to be. And I will take that time. I will take time, and I will take time to get into God's presence, to spend quality time with Him, to acknowledge Him and the Holy Spirit of who I am and who He's destined me to be. And I give myself permission to be me. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for spending time with me. And I hope that you were able to get something out of our message. If it's just one thing, don't wait for someone to give you permission to be who God has called you to be. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share, and join me again for another episode of my channel, My Journey to Loving Me. This is Katina, and remember, you matter, and your mental health is important too. Have a great day and be blessed.